Investing in real estate, is this halal? Is this something you should be doing? Should you be investing in real estate? I'm going to get into that in this video here today. And first things first, let's talk about real estate investing from an Islamic perspective. Is it even halal? Yes, of course it is halal to invest in real estate. If you were to buy a property and sell it at a higher price, nothing wrong with that. If you were to buy a property and rent the space out to someone to live in, there's nothing wrong with that either. The problem is within Canada and the United States, it's really hard to buy a property yourself without borrowing money, right? And without especially borrowing money from a bank. Generally speaking, the people who invest in real estate do so by using what they call leverage. So they'll put up a down payment, they'll get 80% of the funds from the bank, they'll rent it out to a tenant, fix it up, whatever the case may be. And then from there, they're getting a return, they're getting income that way, right? This isn't necessarily a terrible strategy from a financial perspective, but of course there is that interest issue and we got to be super careful, right? Interest is haram. We can't touch that, right? Especially if it's, not out of necessity. A lot of the time people think that's weak in and of itself, but at least in the case of necessity, you've got a reason, right? To make money, that's not necessarily an acceptable excuse. That's what a lot of scholars say. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, the other issue with real estate and investing in real estate that you really need to think about is, okay, what is going to happen from a tax perspective, right? You have to weigh out whether or not this makes sense to you from a tax perspective. What is your return going to look like after taxes, right? Because a lot of people don't think about that. They just think, okay, I'm going to rent this space out for $2,000 a month. I could use an extra $2,000 a month, but it never goes that way, right? What happens is now you've got expenses, right? You got to deal with damage, repairs, property taxes, whatever the case may be. You got to deal with all that stuff. But on top of which, you also have to deal with the taxes, right? Even if half of it, and I've heard this rule out there that take half of the rental income that you're bringing in, that's going to expenses, right? Well, now you've made only $12,000 in addition to what you're currently making, but now you've got to pay taxes on that, right? Unless you set up some sort of tax shelter, which usually doesn't happen with just a single property. Usually people start to do that when they have, 2, 3, 4 properties, whatever the case may be. But what's going to happen is you're going to have that issue of having to pay taxes over and above this, right? So you got to really map it out and see whether or not it's worth it from a financial perspective, not to mention all the headaches, time, hassle, and all that stuff. Where our style of investing comes in, tax-free savings accounts, RSPs, RESPs, those are all tools that you can use, accounts that you can use for tax shelters, for government benefits, all these things. You can invest in real estate using those accounts. Obviously, you don't get to touch and feel, right? It's not your own property. And a lot of people love that. And if that's what you love and it really makes sense for you that way, and that's the only way that you're going to start investing for your future, then by all means, I'll take that over doing nothing, right? But within an RSP, you put money in there, you get an immediate tax deduction today. For years, you have uninterrupted growth, and then when you go to retire, that's when you pay some taxes, right? With the tax-free saving account, you put that money in there today. It will never be taxed again as long as you have it in the tax-free saving account, right? So you can invest in, halal ETFs, halal mutual funds, halal real estate, all these other type of things inside these accounts without having to deal with additional taxes, all these other kind of things, dealing with the headaches of being a landlord and having to kick out people who aren't going to pay, dealing with, pipes bursting, roofs needing to be replaced, landscaping needing to be done, all of that kind of stuff. Because when you're a landlord, all those costs are on you, right? Now, when you look at halal ETFs, these type of things, they have holdings in real estate, generally speaking, they have that all mapped out and hired out to take care of all that stuff. And yes, the bottom line is, as investors, we are paying for that expense a little bit, right? But at least they've got experts in place to kind of help you do that. And of course, the returns are going to be a little bit lower within that framework, but you're still getting exposure to real estate that you're comfortable with. And at the same time, you don't have to deal with all these headaches yourself. Now, if you want to go ahead and deal with those headaches, that's on you, right? But it's just something else that you got to keep in mind. So overall, what I would say is, should you invest in real estate? It's certainly an option, right? Should you invest in physical property? You can, but it's a hard thing to do in North America as a Muslim without taking on interest in all these type of things, right? a better strategy, in my opinion, for Muslims is to invest using your RSPs, your tax saving accounts, your RESPs. You can buy into halal real estate investments, right? Have that be a part of an overall portfolio that also has investments in technology, and healthcare, and science, and all these other kind of things. And that way, you can actually spend your time and your money doing the things you love, right? Now, if real estate is something you love, by all means. If this is the only way that you're going to start saving for your future, by all means, right? But I would say, this strategy, because of our circumstances, is not the right one for most Muslims. What do you guys think? If you wouldn't mind, if you made it to the end of the video here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Helps with the algorithm, helps grow the channel. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.